Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lecture we'll look at some data alignment and arithmetics on data frames. As usual, we start by importing pandas as PD and numpy as np. So in data frames, data is aligned based on column and index labels. So once the alignment is done, the resulting data frame will be a union of both column and row labels. Let's look at an example. So what we'll do is create a couple of data frames and then we'll combine them. Let's create the first data frame. We'll use pandas data frame method, pd.dataframe, and we'll use numpy's random n method to create our data frame. So np.random.randn, and let's say we create an 8x4 data frame. This basically means it will create a data frame for us with 8 rows and then 4 columns. So 8x4. Then let's pass the optional column names. So columns, we can pass A, B, C, and D just to make it simple. A, B, C, and D. And let's save our data frame in a variable called DataFrame1. And let's create another data frame. And we'll save that in a variable called DataFrame2. And we'll use the same method to create our second data frame. So we have pd.dataframe, and then we'll pass np.random.randomn, and in this case let's create a 6x3 data frame, meaning 6 rows by 3 columns. And let's pass the optional columns argument, and then we'll pass A, B, and C for our column A, B, and C. Now let's combine our two data frames. Before that, let's call our data frame 1 and show you what it looks like. So we have 4 columns and then 8 rows, 8x4. Let's call our second data frame, which is data frame 2. This is a 6x3. We have 6 rows and 3 columns. What we'll do next is combine those two data frames. Let's add data frame 1 and data frame 2. So as we said before, data alignment between our two data frames will be based on both columns and then rows, and then anything that's not there will have a no value. Let's see that. So data frame 1 plus data frame 2, we have no values for column D since our second data frame does not have any column D, and similarly the last 2 rows have no values since those 2 rows are absent in data frame 2. Let's look at another example. For this example, we'll create an index value and then we'll pass that as an argument in our data frame. Let's see that. So pandas has a method called a date range, date underscore range, And this method will allow us to create dates and specify a period that we want. For instance, I want to create, today is October 22nd. So let's say 10/22nd 2016. So pd.date range, I pass the date, and let's say, and we pass the periods argument, let's say 10. So this will create a date range starting from October 22nd, and it will add 10 more days. So I'll get October 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th. So 10 days. It will create 10 days for us. And let's save this in a variable called index date. Okay. Module object has no attribute data range. This should be date range, not data range. Let's run it again. Okay, now let's create a data frame by using pandas data frame method, pd.dataframe, and then we'll use the similar numpy's random n method. So np.random.randn, and in this case we'll create a 10x3 data frame, 10 rows by 3 columns. Okay, and then we'll pass the optional parameters index and column. So for the index parameter or argument, we'll pass the index date that we created, and for columns argument we'll pass, let's say, A, B, and C. So A, B, and C. And let's save this in a variable called data frame. And if I call my data frame object, so we have a 10x3 data frame, 10 rows by 3 columns. You see the date range has created a date for us, starting from October 22nd, so to October 31st. And if we call our data frame and then let's say column A, so if we pass that as an index, we see that it's a series object, right? We have the dates and that, and if we want to find out the data type, we can use the type method and then specify type of my data frame and then pass A as an index. We see that it's a series object. Good. We can perform operations on our data frame that we created. Let's say data frame times 3. So this will multiply our data frame values by 3 for each of these cells. For instance, the first one is 0.605 times 3, that's 1.8, and so on. Great. And in the next lecture, we'll continue with some more arithmetics on data frames. Thank you, everyone.